Year over year, core PCE inflation coming in as expected, up by 2.9% in August, but obviously still pretty sticky. Joining us right now on the implications for the Fed with all of this is Loretta Mester. She is former Cleveland Fed President and adjunct professor now at the University of Pennsylvania. And Loretta, what do you think of these numbers? Maybe not hotter than expected, but sticky nonetheless.
Yeah, it was another month of stickiness, and that isn't really what the Fed wants to see. I mean, the narrative has been if we could set aside tariffs, inflation is moving back down towards 2%, and that's just not what's in the data right now. If you look at core services and take out housing, which is coming down, you see that actually moved up. So this isn't really good news for the Fed. They have a very narrow lane to be in. They want to support the labor market, but they're going to need to keep some restrictiveness in their policy stance in order to bring inflation down. And we'll have to see how things play out the rest of the year in terms of where the economy is going. There's a lot of cross currents, as your panel was talking about right before, in terms of not only cyclical things going on, but some structural things, which complicates the picture. And so that's going to be really the job of the Fed going forward, is sort of trying to assess how much is structural, how much is cyclical. And the Fed really can't do much about the structural things going on in the economy, but they can dampen some of the cyclical fluctuations. And that's what they're going to have to do on the labor market side, but also keep in mind what's happening on the inflation side. It's a challenge.
We had a wealth advisor join us earlier and say that he's pretty sure the Fed is going to cut in October. Do you think that's the case?
Well, I think that's the base case. Typically the chair had an opportunity, I guess, at his speech, I guess it was earlier this week, to sort of push back on that market expectation, and he did not do that. And I think they have expressed their concerns about the downside risk. What I hope they don't do is take their eye off the inflation path here, because I think, the narrative they'd like to be able to tell, which is if we set aside and look through the tariff related price increases that we expect to get, that inflation will be heading back down to 2%. And right now, there's not really anything in the data that suggests it. And I think that's cause for concern. So I'm hoping that he always keeps inflation and that part of the goal as part of the calculus here, and not put all the focus on the labor market. And that's really what the Fed does with both of their goals. They need to do that balancing act. And it's difficult given the impulses in the economy right now.
Okay. Loretta, thank you. I guess I would very quickly ask, do you think we get back to 2% inflation anytime in the next decade?
Yes, I do. I mean, the Fed they have the tools to get back to 2% inflation. I'm hoping they can do it without a lot of pain in the economy, and we'll have to see. But that's the balancing act they're going to have to do. So, as somebody now who's retired, I care about these things just as much as everyone else, and as much as I cared about on the Fed as a real person now. And I think people know that it's very painful to have high inflation.